All right, welcome back to another edition of Poppa Talks on Papa Scott Productions. Today I have a good friend, an old friend, Kekoa. How you doing, buddy?
I'm a little sweaty right now, but
Yeah, I know you just did that seminar. Wow, that was 2 hours.
yeah, it was solid though. Like I love coming early and just getting like a good workout in overall. Like, a lot of us travel and we're stuck in the car and then we get here and then we're just like cold. But I like getting here early and putting some work in, especially if we can help each other get better. So yeah, I love it. But I'm so glad to be back. I'm glad to see you. It's been a couple of years now since I left.
I know, man. That's crazy. And we'll get into that a little bit too. But yeah, I just want to start. I'm doing this podcast just because I'm not. Well, I start next month filming again here, but because they did the TV gig, so kind of did this. Got in front of the mics, new thing for me. But I'm just still trying to get workers out there.
Yeah, and it's great because I always see you doing something different. Like you got into video, and then now you told me about the drone thing, and you're doing this. Like you're always expanding, which is good. I wish more people were doing stuff like that. Everyone's always afraid to like try something new, but so I'm glad that you're diving in and you're like, screw it, I'll just learn on the way.
Yep, absolutely. I like learning. It's not always been in my past, but now I'm doing some new things. So.
Because people are so afraid. Like people are so afraid, and then they're afraid of like either failing, or they're afraid of like doing it and then not and finding out that they don't love it or they're not good at it. But it's like, who cares?
Right.
Like you don't know that you are until you try it.
Right.
And then it might be the greatest thing that you've ever done before, or all of a sudden it's like your new passion now, and you're like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Why didn't I do this sooner? So,
exactly.
And especially just like you said, you're like, learning or trying something new wasn't your past, and now it is.
Right.
And now, how much would you say that you wish that you tried newer things or different things so many years ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because how old are you now?
I'm 61.
So you're 61, and now imagine if you were trying things different, you tried things 10, 20 years ago,
right?
And where you would have been now, and it's like, okay, you can dwell on that, or you can be like, screw it, like, all right, let's start now, because I'm only 61, or I'm only 51, or I'm only 40, like, I got so many more years, so like that's awesome. I'm really glad you're doing it.
I just started flying RC gliders. They have propellers on them, so you can like get them up there and then glide. So
that's awesome.
It sounds easy, but it's not. I had no idea it was going to be as tough.
I can't imagine.
I knew nothing about, number one, setting up the transmitter and then the LiPo batteries. It's crazy.
I have enough problems when I'm playing Call of Duty and I'm flying the plane because everything's in reverse.
Right.
And like if you push up but it actually goes down, you know what I mean? So like if I can't imagine playing a video game, let alone like actually physically flying something. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this. I want some of my friends. I got almost 10,000 subscribers now on my YouTube page, which is pretty cool. Very blessed for that. But
killing it.
Hey, let's start by just where you are from. Where were you born?
So I was born in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania, like the Allentown, Bethlehem area. That's what most people know. Like I grew up in a very small town of Pennsylvania that not a lot of people know about, but generally most people know about Allentown, Bethlehem area. But I was born and raised there. I did live in Hawaii for a very short period, but everything that my family essentially set up in Hawaii, like it didn't work out. Like we were supposed to get this house, that fell through. Like my dad was supposed to get this job, like that fell through. I think I was supposed to get set up with a certain school, and like that fell through. So like all of the plans that we had like didn't work. And then my mom was like, no, we're going back to the East Coast. So I was in Hawaii for a very short period, and then we moved back. Like my dad's whole family is from that side, which is why like that was the big reason why we were moving out there, besides of all of the planning. Right. But yeah, it didn't work out. We ended up moving back to the East Coast, and then I essentially lived there the rest of my life until I relocated to Florida and was in an area that's a little bit more of my genetics, I would say.
So, as a kid, I mean, did you get into wrestling as a kid? When did first catch your attention?
My mom says I was 2 when my dad put me in front of the TV, like 2 or 3, that I was in front of the television, and then like, I was just like, it was the first thing that made me sit, and I was still, which I can, as a dad now, vouch for that, like, and I'm sure this happened with your son, like, you do certain things and then you realize like, oh, they actually like this.
Right.
Like my daughter, like we were putting on Disney Plus for everything. We put on Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, like every movie that we grew up with. Of course Moana hit. Moana comes on and she stayed still. And we were like, oh, she likes Moana. Like, that's how it was for me, apparently. Like, wrestling came on, and I stayed still as a kid, so I don't blame my parents. Yeah. But then, like, they thought I was going to grow out of it. I didn't. And I always loved it. And then at one point, I wanted to be a wrestler. And then I thought, all right, well, maybe I want to get into baseball. Maybe I want to get into basketball. I wasn't sure. I was getting pulled in different directions, and I wasn't sure. But it wasn't until the first time I went to Carson's Pro Wrestling World in Allentown, and he had a wrestling ring in the back of his shop, and he was like, let me show you. So he shows me the ring, and he's like, do you want to get in it? I was like, of course I do. And it was the first time I ever touched a wrestling ring. I got in the ring, and I touched the rope, and I was like, this is it. I don't know what it was from that moment, but it was the light bulb of, like, I never want to do anything ever again. Wow. And I was even going into my senior year of basketball that year, and I wanted to do wrestling. And every time I went to basketball, I was thinking about wrestling. And I was like, this isn't what I want to do anymore. And even though it was my senior year and everyone was like, just finish out your senior year, like, you've been playing basketball your whole life, just do it. You're going to regret it if you quit. I never regretted it. I quit 5 games into the season, and I never looked back.
Nice. That's good. So who was your main wrestler growing up, your favorite?
It was always Shawn Michaels, and it was because when I was like 7 or 8 years old, my mom got me the WWF magazine at the time, and they would put in, like, here's the birthdays for the month. And I vividly remember I was at my grandmother's in Jersey, and I was living in Pennsylvania, and I called my mom, and she's like, your magazine came in. I was like, oh, cool. I was like, can't wait to read it when I get home. And she's like, you're not gonna guess. She's like, you share a birthday with somebody. And I was like, who? And she's like, Shawn Michaels. And I was like, no way. And I was like, set. Like, I already loved Shawn. Now he's my favorite, and he's been my favorite, since then. And of course, like, when I got into wrestling and I started learning more of the history, there were other people I was like, I like this person for this reason, I like this person for this reason, but my first love, I guess, was always Shawn.
Right, cool. Well, you spoke of magazine, you sparked my memory. I brought this magazine for you because he happens to be in it, which is really cool. And you had, at one point, you told me you didn't have it, so anyway, I had saved it for you.
You're the man. You're the absolute man. And this is some of the stuff that, like, I don't care that I've never been signed. I don't care that I haven't had my WrestleMania moment. I don't, like, of course I want all those things. Sure. But, like, if I dwell on the things that I don't have, that's what's going to pull me into a depression. But, like, the things that I've gotten to do, like, I won the MCW Heavyweight Championship and they put my picture in a magazine. Like, what else do I, you know what I mean? Like, right. Why am I getting picky? You know what I mean? Like, how many people get to say that? There's people that get their, like, name in a newspaper for, like, oh yeah, they got a job promote, you know what I mean? Like, right. Little things, and, like, it means the absolute world to them. So, like,
it's nice to be recognized.
I just want to have so much appreciation for the things I've gotten to do, and this is, like, I'm in a freaking magazine. How cool is that?
Yeah, that's really cool. Really cool. So when did you and how did you first start wrestling? I mean, you went to training somewhere, or?
Yeah, so with Carson's Pro Wrestling World, going into my senior year, at the time, the Wild Samoans were actually training in his building, and they were renting out that space to run their center out of. And to make a long story short, they ended up, going to find their own building. They separated, whatever. But now Bud was like, okay, well, I want that school. Like, that was a source of income for me. So he was like, all right, well, screw it. I'm just going to start my own school. He was going to find some independent guys that he was confident in to train the next set of wrestlers and whatnot. And, he knew who I was. He knew that I had an athletic background. So he actually approached me and he was like, do you want to start with my wrestling school? Do you want to be part of the first class? And what was really funny was, and I've told this story before, since it was my senior year, my dad was going to give me a graduation present. And we were, like, me, him, my girlfriend at the time, we were all going to go on a cruise and celebrate that we graduated. But my girlfriend didn't like cruises. So she's like, can we do something else? So my dad was like, I'll just give you $500 and you can just go, do a trip or something like that. Go do a weekend trip or something like that. So I was like, all right, cool. So he gave me $500 at the same time that Bud approached me and asked me if I wanted to start his school. And I was like, okay, well, I know, like, schools cost like $4,000. So I'm like, I don't have $4,000. And he's like, well, how much do you have to start? I'm like, I can give you $500 as a deposit. And he goes, sold. And then I had to call my girlfriend and be like, yeah, we're not going on a trip anymore. I took that money and ran. And she was like, yeah, she understood. Like, you know, she knew that it was what I wanted to do. So she didn't think anything of it.
Nice. So when was your first pro match?
My first pro match, I know I wrestled my coach in, I think, like August or September of 2006. But like, so that could technically be my first match, but it was like a student show. Like they were like, you know, invite your friends and family to come and like see how well you've been doing. So that was technically my first match, but like my first match on a show that like wasn't ran by the school was with Richie Rotten in Body Slam Wrestling Organization when they were in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey, all the way back when. That was in October of 2006.
Wow.
So coming up, my wrestling career will be able to get its driving permit. I'll be 16 years in, so yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really proud about that.
Yeah, you
I'm
should be.
super proud about that I've been able to be healthy this long.
Yeah, for sure. I had another question right off that, and I lost it.
I ruin it. I always ruin it.
So tell me about your finisher. Do you still have a finisher?
So yeah, I had a move at one point where I was like picking a guy up on my shoulders, and then I was like flipping him all the way around into like a rock bottom essentially. That a buddy of mine, like, he was playing around with like action figures, and he was like, oh, what if you did like this? And I was like, oh, that's cool, but I can only do it on certain people, you know, like bigger guys I can't do it to. So then it was like, all right, well, I got to come up with something else. And then I was using the super kick at one point because a lot of people, you know, overuse it. So I wanted to make sure like it wasn't as overused. You know, if you're going to make it mean something, make it mean something. And then it just so happened that I used a frog splash at MCW once, and then someone had given me the advice of like, okay, well, you do a top rope elbow drop, and that's really pretty. You also do a frog splash, and that's really pretty. But now you're doing two pretty things off the top rope, and it's like the second thing doesn't mean as much because your other thing is just as pretty. So they're like, do only one. So I got rid of the top rope elbow drop, and then I stuck with the frog splash. And then as I've been doing it, I've been adding more like elevation to it, more of a pump to it, like trying to find my own style of it or how I would like to do it. So I would say the frog splash has been more of a consistent finish for the past couple years.
Yeah, I remember the super kick. That's what I was asking.
That's my shotgun right there.
Right. So,
which Missy Sampson would kill me for, but you know, that is what it is.
So you mentioned that you held the heavyweight title at MCW, which is pretty prestigious indie title. Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I remember that. But tell me, I know you guys, you're humble. Tell me a little bit about the E. Tell me about your TV experience with WWE.
It's always been interesting. It's absolutely crazy to go there even with the amount of times that I've gotten to go. It's always crazy to go and remember how much of a machine WWE is, or how much a machine AEW is, how just the amount of crew that it takes to run one of those shows is just insane. So it's always like humbling to go and see that and go like, it really takes an army to make something happen, which then reminds me of like, you know, even the independence of like, it takes everybody, you know, and a lot of guys that are on the greener side that are putting up rings or putting out the chairs or selling tickets, like they don't get the recognition that they should because they take as much of a role as anybody else does, if not more, because they're the ones that are coming early and staying late while everyone else is like, oh, I gotta drive far, and they only have 30-minute freaking drive, and then they go home and then they lay down and they don't help, you know, and it's like, it's insane. But overall, it's always great to go. It's a reminder of like, just keep plugging, just keep working. If it happens, it happens. If not, you know, it wasn't in the cards. You know, it is what it is. It's kind of like me joking around now, and now that I have my second daughter on the way, and I'm like, I guess I'm not having a son, but you know, we're not sure if we're gonna have a third.
Well, let me give you a little bit of hope. Tyler was my last, my first son. So
yeah,
it does happen.
You never know. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but you can't live off of.
But I after the podcast, I will tell you how to get a boy.
Well, I don't know if I would take advice about Ty Awesome, but you know.
Well, I said a boy. I didn't say Ty Awesome. No, but he's a little bit of your project. I'm trying to think of the word. He is Well, he learned from you. You were his mentor there for several years. I mean, you guys.
Yeah.
Even before you had your little trilogy thing, but you always were. I mean, you did it with everybody, but you always helped Ty.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, you always were there. You were his buddy. You know, every match you would sit there and talk. Every show, you'd spend time, hang out with him, and teach him.
Because I want to help anybody I can.
And you've always been that way.
And I think it's just because like I made so many mistakes young in my career that like I wish I had somebody to pull me aside and go like, hey, this is what reality is, like this is what you're doing, so do better or knock this off, like do this or do, you know what I mean, like right. I didn't have that person to like hold me by the shoulder and guide me, like I had to figure all this stuff out, and it was hard, you know, and that's part of the business, which is fine, but then I feel like it took so many extra years for me to get to the point that I wanted to be because I didn't have that person guiding me or like that person I had to lean on. And I was making so many mistakes. I was getting heat from certain guys because I said the wrong thing or I did the wrong thing or I came off the wrong way. And there's just so many things that I wish I did differently. And I wish that I had somebody to just hold me here and go and big brother me. Right. You know what I mean? So because I didn't have that, I want to do that for others so that they don't make so many mistakes like I did and then maybe ruin 2 or 3 extra years on their career because they had to recover from that or something of that sort. Right. You know what I mean? So anybody that's willing to learn, like I can tell when someone has passion or when someone doesn't. If they don't have it and they're just kind of going through the motions, then yeah, I'm not going to waste my breath on you. But if I can tell that you want to listen, then yeah, I'm here to help. You know, and I think Ty always wanted to listen, so that was why I did what I did.
Yeah, cool. Well, tell me about work rate. Do you still have work rate, or is that a thing of the past?
No, it's not a thing of the past. It's changed. Like, you know, before when we had the school, and then it was. You know, then all right. Well, now we have to do shows because now we have to implement the stuff that I'm teaching the students. You know what I mean?
Tell my subscribers a little bit about what Work Rate is.
So to backtrack a little bit, so Work Rate Entertainment started as like a Walmart rental company. You know, essentially it was a one-stop shop for everybody. So when you're running a promotion, you know, one guy might have your wrestling ring, and then your next guy is your DJ guy, and then this guy has your entranceway, and this guy has your promoter's license. Like you might have 4 or 5 contacts in order to run one event. Well, I was like, well, if I just had everything, then you can combo package that, and I can save them money. And then again, you have one reliable person that just has everything, and then you don't have to scramble and try and find somebody else. Like this guy has everything. And I always pride myself on reliability. If I give you my word that I'm going to be there, I don't care if I'm dying. Like I'll make sure that my equipment gets there. You know what I mean? Like people can rely on me. I'm not going to cancel on you. Right. So that was how it started. It was a wrestling ring, entranceway, DJ equipment, video production equipment, all that stuff, so that they could run an event. And then it just so happened that a local gym owner wanted to be different in our area, and he wanted, you know, MMA training, he wanted CrossFit training, he wanted professional wrestling training in his gym, and he knew who I was, and he asked me like, hey, would you mind doing this? And I was like, I can do it. I wasn't sure I wanted to because I'm a nobody. You know, like I don't have a name value in this business. You know, like some people know who I am, but like I was never in WWE, I was never in AEW, so who am I to tell them, you know, how they should be doing things? But then I sat there and I'm like, okay, but I've gone to so many schools that I disagree with how they're training. And I very much disagree with how these guys are getting into the business because like they're just getting pushed along, and now there's so many guys that are like unsafe, and I don't agree with that. And I'm like, I'm confident that I can teach you the correct way and be safe and be successful, or at least give you the tools to be successful, more successful than I've ever been. You know, like, here you go. I was confident in that. So then that changed my perception of like, I didn't want to start a school and someone look at me and be like, who does he think he is? I changed my perception and said, I want to have a school and be able to say like, I'm here to help, if that makes sense. Absolutely. I stopped caring about what other people were going to think of me because I knew I was trying to do the right thing. So then I started the school, and then it turned into shows, and then we moved, and then it, you know, obviously we pulled everything. Now, you know, because I have a daughter and because I'm training as much as I am and traveling as much as I am, I've pulled back from the school and shows and stuff like that. Now I just focus on the rentals if somebody needs me. But we also have to build our name value in Florida now because nobody knows who the hell I am.
Right.
All my name value is up here.
Yeah.
People know who I am and can vouch for me here. Now it's getting, you know, my name around down there.
Cool. Well, I guess why we're talking about work rate and you. How can somebody get up with you if they want to talk about work rate or they want to book you somewhere? We're going to get Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's always at Kekoa Pro. Kekoa is how you spell my name. They can hit me up on any of those platforms. I'm pretty easy to find. Not too many Kekoa wrestlers around.
No.
One other one in Florida that I constantly get tagged in pictures, and
Really?
they're like, yeah, Noah Kekoa, who was in NXT, like just recently,
Okay.
he's on a poster in Florida, and then I got tagged in it, and I'm looking on it, and I'm like, did I agree to a booking that like I don't remember? And I'm looking on it, and I'm like, oh no, Noah's on there. So then I replied back to it. I'm like, yo, you tagged the wrong oos, like,
Oh, man, that's
and I tagged him, and they're like, oh, sorry. It's happened a couple times.
Well, I like to ask people if they have any funny road stories or anything that might be pop to your mind, anything crazy that's happened that you could share.
Ah, man, I haven't told some funny road stories in quite a while, and some of them are not PG.
Yeah. Well, this really isn't a PG channel, so it doesn't.
So the first one that comes to mind, I always pick on my buddy Chad for, because my buddy Chad says some dumb shit sometimes, and he said two of the dumbest things on this one trip. We were driving down to ECWA, and for those that don't know, his wrestling name used to be Caveman Chad, but him and I have known each other since we were little kids. We literally grew up since elementary school together. We always knew that we were both wrestling fans. That's how we became friends, and we did backyard wrestling together and became pros and yada yada yada. So we're on the road together, and since we grew up together, a lot of times we would go over to his grandfather's house, and his grandfather essentially let us do like whatever we wanted. But sadly, his grandfather had passed like the year before, something of that sort, around this time. So we're in the car and we're telling stories about his grandfather and the good times that we had as a kid. And he starts like we tell a story and we're all doing the laugh in the car, and he goes, ha ha, yeah, man, I miss my grandfather. He'd be alive right now if he didn't die. And I was like, that's the dumbest shit you could have ever said, Chad. No, duh. Of course he'd be alive right now if he didn't die. Like, that's the dumbest thing ever. And then in the same trip, again, this was at the time, this was when Words with Friends was like getting big on the phones, and everyone was playing the Scrabble game. So I was playing it, and me and Chad are in the back seat, and I'm playing it, and I'm like, Chad, do you play Words with Friends? And he's like, no. I was like, dude, you like download this game, like we can play together. It's like, it's addicting. He's like, nah, I don't want to play Words with Friends. And I was like, what? I was like, you don't like Scrabble? I'm like, why don't you want to play Words with Friends? He goes, I'm not good at math. It's a word game, Chad. It's like,
Oh my goodness.
you idiot.
That's funny.
So
That's
it's always fun. I have a ton more. That's just for whatever reason the first thing that popped in my head is I always love picking on my friends.
I also ask everybody, and I especially expect a good answer from you, because you've always been a mentor to so many people. You always have good advice for people, and that's one thing I've noticed about you. A lot of people come to you for advice, but so what? You're coming on 16 years in the business. What keeps you motivated? I mean, I know it's not easy at times. Mm-hmm. So what keeps you motivated?
I feel like it's because I'm not done. Like, I feel like I have so much to learn, and I feel like I'm getting into this next level gear. Like, I'm so confident in what I've been applying recently, and now that I've moved to Florida and I'm getting to learn from like the best of the best in the business. Like, I'm not here to name drop or anything like that, but I'm like, I'm learning from the very best in the business, and like, I can't, like, what am I going to complain about? So now, like, I'm physically learning from the best, and like, that was the reason for the move,
right? Because
I wanted to be around people that I can continue learning from, even though, yeah, I was running a school, but like, the school never meant that I knew everything, but it also gave me an area to train and continue my craft and get better, and like, that's what I just want to do. I want to get better. I want to be able to still accomplish what I want to accomplish, and I'm looking at guys that are contracted, that have full-time jobs with this, and they're over 40, and I'm 34 years old. So that means, in that instance, if I was signed at 40 and I had 5 solid years, that's 5 solid years, and that gives me 6 more years to look at to get to that point. And that's if I'm at that level at 40. You know what I mean? Like, I can still go.
Yeah.
Like, I still have so much passion for what I do.
40's not old.
No, absolutely not. I'm gonna be that 90-year-old Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
I want to be shredded at 90. I want to be so physically in shape and have people just go like, age is nothing, and be a motivation for other people to be like, yeah, age is absolutely nothing. People look at numbers so incorrectly. I mean, again, look at you, like for your age, not that you're old by any means, but like people think I'm this old, I'm done learning, I'm done doing this, all I want to do is just live life and die. Right. You know what I mean? And people fall into that pattern. Like, I'm 34 years old, I'm young, I got time, like my knees are still good, my back is still good, I can still go, and I still love this, so why wouldn't I keep going? So that's why, like, I am surrounding myself with people that all they want to do is this. And that's what's keeping me going, is that circle. And I've been talking about that for years. And people surround themselves with the wrong people, and then they lose their motivation because they're like, well, they don't want to work out, so well, who am I going to work out with? Find some new friends.
Right. Absolutely.
Damn. Like I moved away from everyone.
Yes.
Because I wanted to surround myself with the right people.
And it was all for wrestling.
All for wrestling.
Yeah, amazing. You don't hear that too much.
And I want to be an example for my daughters. It's hard to say. That's the first time I ever said daughters. I want to be an example for my daughters to know, like, Dad risked everything, so do it. You know, like, we live once. Yep. To our knowledge, we live once. Do it.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, I'd like to close out my podcast by giving you an opportunity to ask Poppa a question.
Ooh. So, when was the last time you grounded Ty Awesome, and why was it last week? And what did he do?
Well, it wasn't last week.
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. No.
Wait, do I see him?
No.
No, he's hiding.
Oh, he is in the ring.
He's actually in the ring?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I couldn't see him behind that toothpick.
We're getting ready to... You know I took a belt from him.
I did see that.
The Valor Pro. I'm still the Valor Pro champion.
So my question for Papa Scott, so now that we've talked about it a little bit today about your age is just a number. You're trying new things. So if you were to look back at 35-year-old you or 40-year-old you, what would you tell yourself?
I'd like to go back to 30 and tell myself to not marry her.
Okay, but besides that, what would you tell yourself? Let's not focus on the negative.
Yeah, focus on you. I didn't focus on me for a long time.
Yeah.
I always focused on my career, providing for my family. And then, you know, even when Tyler started wrestling, I stopped everything I was doing just so I could drive. And he doesn't see real good at night. But to drive him and to be part of this with him and to help him any way I could. So
that's
I wouldn't
great.
change any of that. But just maybe do more for myself as far as learning more like I am now.
Yeah, and that's great. And I want to give you a compliment because I feel like compliments are they have to be said when they've earned them. And when I told my parents that I wanted to be a professional wrestler, one of them told me that I was wasting my life, and the other one went cool, and that was pretty much it. I can count on my hand how many times that my dad has been to wrestling matches in my entire 15-year career, which I don't like, but it is what it is. So the mere fact that, like, you sacrificed a lot in order to, like, help him in his career, like, you have absolutely earned it. And, like, you should be very proud of that because most parents wouldn't, especially with the career that we have. And to follow up with your advice to yourself, if you've ever heard the top 5 things that, what's the word I'm looking for? A hospice nurse has said, the top 5 things that people have said on their deathbed that they regret is that they've worked too hard, that they didn't keep relationships with their friends and family like they should have. They didn't give themselves more credit. I'm trying to remember the other ones, but essentially the advice that you're giving yourself is the same thing that people are saying on their deathbed. So the mere fact that you're giving yourself that advice now and you've now learned it, that's another compliment that you should be proud of because you've figured it out now and not when it's too late. So that's awesome.
Cool. Thank you, bud, and I appreciate your time, and it's great to see you again, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely, my man.
Love
Thank you,
brother.
as always. Appreciate it.